everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name's Lizzie and today I have a well overdue sew and tell video for you. Now I've got 4 garments to tell you about today and I think I actually finished the first one like back in April maybe. Like these 4 garments have been a long time in the making, but I haven't been ready to show them to you yet for various reasons, and as you will know, if you've seen my previous videos, I've been kind of out of action recently in terms of sewing. I've been suffering from repetitive strain injury in my wrists, which put me out of action for the best part of 2 months in terms of sewing. But luckily I'm basically good as new now. Not totally good as new, I'm still having to be careful not to overdo it, but I can sew again, and that means that I've very recently finished off the 4th one of these garments and I'm really excited to show you them and see what you think. The first thing that I would like to show you is the first thing that I finished, and that is this skirt. It is a Tilly and the Buttons Ariel skirt, and it's made in this beautiful buttery soft faux suede fabric that I bought from Fabric Godmother at least 2 years ago, maybe even longer. And I've been all along that I wanted to make a skirt out of it, but I've been waiting to make sure that I knew exactly the right style of skirt that I wanted to make, and that, you know, I just wanted it to be perfect because this fabric is just so lovely. And I knew that I wanted it to be like some sort of mini skirt, like a little bit A-line but not too A-line, and I wanted it to feature some sort of buttons or poppers, and I'm really pleased with how it's come out. So for any of you that aren't familiar with the Ariel skirt pattern from Tilly and the Buttons, it comes in 2 variations, so you can have a longer length, like more of a midi length sort of pencil skirt type vibe, or you can have it in the mini length, and it actually comes up just above the natural waist, which I think is a nice feature, particularly me because I'm very long bodied, so I quite like when things come actually beyond my natural waist. And it's a wrap skirt, so if you open, let me show you. If you open these buttons, if you open the buttons up, like it opens all the way up into just one big piece. Like so. So that's what it looks like on the inside, and as you can see it's beautifully lined. I'd never really done a proper lining like this before, and I love that the Tilly instructions, as always, give you such thorough, detailed picture instructions to show you exactly how to do everything, and it's just such a lovely finish on the inside. I just lined it in this sort of typical acetate sort of lining. I did make a toile of this skirt before I made it because I wanted this fabric to be, you know, it deserved the best treatment. And I made it in a size 3 according to the measurements, and I did take in the side seams because the size 3 was a little bit big, and I added 2 inches to the length of the short skirt, because I knew I wanted it to be a mini skirt, but I also knew that I wanted to be able to wear it to work with like a smart blouse, or, you know, with like in the winter, I'm imagining that I'll probably wear this with like a black turtleneck, black tights, smart boots or whatever. So yeah, I didn't want it to be too short that it would be like too short for when I sit down at my computer at work, so I added 2 inches to the length. In terms of the buttons, these buttons I bought online from myfabrics.co.uk, and they were a bit of a risky purchase because this was right at the beginning of lockdown, and I didn't realise until I'd already placed the order that at their website at that time it was saying something like delivery up to 3 months, and I was like, oh no, like I've just found these perfect buttons and they might not arrive for 3 months, but actually luckily they didn't take 3 months to arrive. I forget now, but they, you know, they arrived within I don't know, a couple of weeks or something. And yeah, I really like the effect of these buttons. This garment is a particularly dramatic success story because it's the very first garment I've ever made that features buttons and buttonholes, which just feels like such a big hurdle to have overcome as a, you know, on my sewing journey, because I've just always completely avoided any patterns that included buttons, which put blouses totally out and shirts and things, and, you know, like a lot of trousers are finished with at least 1 button at the top, and I think it's been kind of restricting my progress in my like learning of, you know, how to sew and how to make clothes. So I did a lot of practicing. My sewing machine is a fairly basic Janome model, so it doesn't have like an all-in-one buttonhole setting. You just have to do a manual buttonhole, which is where you go like down, across, up and across again. But actually I really like the control that comes with doing it manually, and in order to learn how to do a 4-step buttonhole I used the tutorial on the Tilly and the Buttons blog, which was really helpful. And actually, like so many sewing tasks, it's actually not as scary as everyone makes out. So yay for my first ever little skirt with buttons. The next thing that I want to show you is actually the most recent thing that I've finished, but I've been holding off on showing you it all because I want the blouse to be able to be worn with this skirt that I just told you about. And the blouse, I think it's going to be a bit bright for me to hold it up and show you properly, so I may just put in some photos. But this blouse is the V8772 blouse from Vogue Patterns. Now I was totally inspired by Nikki from the Stitch Sisters, who's on Instagram as She's So Vintage, I think that's her handle. She made a version of this blouse in a purple, I'm not sure exactly what kind of fabric it was, and she did a bell sleeve hack on the sleeves to make this big, voluminous, amazing sleeve, and I just thought I have to copy that, I have to recreate that. And I wanted it to be like a smart blouse that I could wear for work, but the sleeves just make it so much more fun than just some boring white blouse, right? The fabric that I've used is this beautiful tencel. The brand is Meat Milk, and it's the tencel diamond in off-white that I bought from Lamazi Fabrics. It's 100% tencel, and I'm not sure how easy it will be to show you, but it's got the most beautiful diamond texture on it, which I just think is lovely. So I thought the fabric made it a little bit more special again than just a plain flat white. I'm really into fabrics that have got a little bit of texture, like plain solid colours but with a bit of texture. And I made, this is the pattern, the V8772. And I made view B, which is the pussy bow blouse version. It also comes with like an ordinary collar with various different sleeve lengths. There's a sleeveless, like short sleeved, 3/4 length sleeves, etc, etc. But it does come with just like a normal lapped cuff. And I wanted to add the bell sleeve. Now to do this it was actually really simple. I looked at a few tutorials online, the main one being from By Hand London, on the By Hand London blog, and we'd also learnt about this a bit in the bodice fitting masterclass at the new craft house that I went to in March. This was literally like a week and a half before lockdown, and we did a little bit extra where we talked about sleeves. The first version of the sleeve that I made, so I made extensive toiles to make this blouse because I really wanted it to be right. So when I did the first version of this bell-shaped sleeve, I didn't have quite enough volume, so I went in and I made it even bigger to make the final one. But yeah, basically you have your pattern piece and you draw a few lines up from the hem of the sleeve up to the seam allowance right at the top. You cut up those lines and you literally spread your pattern pieces out to create a bigger sleeve and like retrace. But yeah, go check out the By Hand London blog on that if you want to see how Elise Alex recommends you do it. And yeah, so in terms of a few other adjustments, I did make several adjustments. So I needed to make a 1/2 inch small bust adjustment on each side, so 1 inch small bust adjustment in total. I think I've realised I basically need to do that every time I make anything. I also raised the armhole by 1 centimetre. I made the collar a bit narrower because the collar, the fabric that I twirled in, so the pussy bow blouse collar I mean, the pattern piece actually means that it's a bit wider than this, and I just thought maybe I'd go for something slightly more subtle, but actually this fabric is so drapey that it wouldn't have mattered if it was the full width in the end. I also had to make the cuff a bit smaller because I really wanted it to be quite tight around my wrist to really get the contrast between, you know, it small around my wrist and then the big billowy volume of the sleeve. I had a few troubles when I was sewing this. Firstly, I forgot to interface the cuffs, so I had to kind of unpick it all and interface the cuffs and sew it all back together again, so that was a bit of a blunder. And I don't know why, like, I used to always cut out my interfacing at the same time as I cut out my fabric, but for some reason I didn't do it this time, so note to self to do the whole interfacing thing at the beginning, because then it will avoid this issue. And this was the first ever time that I'd done a lapped, well, it was the first time I'd done any cuff actually, to be honest. And the cuff, I'll show you my cuff. It's not the most beautiful because it is my first time. So I did it once with the toile as a practice run. I made just one sleeve of the toile just to like practice these techniques, because it's quite fiddly and it's a commercial pattern. So obviously the instructions aren't quite as detailed or thorough or beginner friendly as they would be if it was like an indie pattern. But basically this is what it looks like. I hope this is going to focus for you. So what you basically have is your two buttons here, and then you have a little opening here. So if I undo it, you basically need an opening beyond the cuff to make sure that you can actually get your hand through. So it opens out like so, and then you close it up and you've got this little gap here, but it closes up all nicely so that it's nice and discreet by the time you've got it. So that's the lapped bit there. I hope that you can see that. Yeah, so this bit was tricky, and I'm really glad that I practiced it before I went in with the real fabric, because yeah. So hopefully I'll get better and better at that over time. Don't judge too closely if you spotted any of my wobbly bits. I had a bit of a panic over my tailor's chalk. Now, transferring the markings from my pattern pieces onto my fabric is my least favourite part of the whole sewing process. I haven't really found a method that works well for me. I don't enjoy it, and I used pink tailor's chalk, and I didn't really take account of the fact that this fabric is really, really sheer. So then as I started to sew it together, I was like, oh my gosh, you can really see the pink tailor's chalk on the right side of the fabric, and I just kind of panicked thinking, oh my god, what if I've ruined this really expensive, really high quality fabric by using pink tailor's chalk on it. But luckily it came out in the wash, and it's fine. I washed it after I finished making it, and there's like one little bit on this lapped collar on this lapped cuff, sorry, where you can still see a little bit of pink, but I think one more go through the wash after I've worn it next time and it will be fine. The buttons that I chose are actually just buttons that I had in my stash. I didn't really want... I find buying buttons online quite difficult. I haven't really had to do it very many times yet, because this is only my second garment that features buttons. And yeah, so in the end I just went for these little plastic buttons that I just had in my stash already. So they're nothing particularly glamorous or particularly special. So if it turns out that this is a garment that I end up wearing lots, which I hope it will be, in the future I might upgrade the buttons with something a bit more special. But to start with, I just wanted to use something that I already had, and those were what I had. And as you will have seen from the pictures, I wanted to wear the blouse with my Tilly and the Buttons Ariel skirt, and I really like the effect. I think in summer it works well with just some smart tan coloured flats, and then in the winter I'll be able to wear this outfit to work with like black tights and black shoes. So I'm hoping that it will be quite a transitional outfit that I can wear in the summer and spring, subject to how hot it is. You wouldn't want to wear that outfit on a really hot day, but yeah, on a cooler spring summer day I could wear it, and in the winter. It does feel a bit bizarre to be planning outfits to wear to work, because I haven't been to work since the middle of March. I've been working from home because of the pandemic. I'm very lucky that I can do my job completely from home, just with a decent Wi-Fi connection. So yeah, I don't know when I'll be next needing to wear smart clothes to go to the office, but you know, eventually, hopefully, life will go back to normal. The next thing that I would like to show you is a hack of the Seamwork Astoria jumper. You will have seen this if you follow me on Instagram, because I have posted it on there already. And it is in this most delicious waffle knit fabric from Mind the Maker that I also bought from Lamazi Fabrics, and just look at the texture of this. I mean, it's just gorgeous. So I hacked the Seamwork Astoria quite significantly to make this. So I sized up to a large, so I think I previously made a small, so I sized up 2 sizes because I wanted it to be oversized, like a comfy loose jumper that I can throw on, you know, on a spring summer day when it gets a bit chilly, or to wear in the winter with like a long sleeve top underneath for layers and warmth. So I sized up. I also took the neckline in because the reason I don't really wear, and have now given to charity, my previous Seamwork Astoria was because the neckline was so wide. It's not a really wide neckline, but the neckline was wide enough that you could see if you wear like a t-shirt underneath. I'm a layers girl. I run cold. I need to be able to wear layers underneath, and I don't really like it when the top layer has a wider neckline than your underneath layer. So I brought the neckline in a bit so I can wear things underneath. I lengthened it by 20 centimetres because I wanted it to be long and loose and baggy and casual, and not like the Seamwork Astoria is actually designed to be a little cropped jumper, but I added loads of length. I took in some triangles at the shoulder. I often have to do that because I've got very flat square shoulders instead of sloping shoulders. And I also added slits in the side because I just wanted my movement to not be restricted, but I wanted it to kind of cover my bum mostly. I might be changing it a little bit because the hem does go a little bit wavy if I don't iron it before I wear it, and I don't iron unless it's part of the sewing process. My iron does not come out. So I might actually sew up those slits in the side seam and put a narrow hemband on it. I think that would just help the whole thing be a bit more stable, and I don't really want to risk stretching it out. I don't think it's currently stretched out. I think that's just the nature of the fabric, that it's a bit wavy, and I didn't use any kind of stabilising tape. So yeah, I might add a band around the hem just to stabilise it. I used a tutorial from Guthrie and Garni. It was a YouTube tutorial, I believe, to help me figure out how long the neckband should be, because of the fact that I'd made the neck hole narrower. It meant that the pattern piece for the neckband wasn't necessarily going to work. And actually, through watching the Guthrie and Garni tutorial, I realised that you probably always shouldn't necessarily rely on the pattern piece when you're doing neck bands for knit fabric, because the size of the neckband is going to depend on how stretchy the fabric is. Is it a really thick, sturdy sweatshirting fabric? Is it a really loose, is it like a really, really flexible, stretchy, like viscose jersey or something? And you're probably going to need a different length of neckband depending on the properties of your fabric. So that was a really useful process to have gone through, to have drafted my own neckband based on the fabric type and the size of the neck hole. There was also a learning process in this garment because I used a twin needle for the first time. I've wanted to slowly look to improve the quality of finish on my knit garments. I do use an overlocker now, which isn't actually that new of a development, but I use an overlocker now to make my knit garments. You don't need to, you can just use a sewing machine, but I do use an overlocker. But you can't, I wanted to learn to use a twin needle for a better finish on the hem, because to be able to replicate what you would get if you buy a knit garment in the shops, you would need a cover stitch machine. I've got no interest in having another machine as part of my collection. So yeah, using a twin needle is a good solution. What that basically means, I don't think I'm going to be able to show you very well, but you basically get left with 2 neat rows of stitching on the outside, but because of how the stitches are formed on the wrong side, it stretches. So it looks like 2 rows of straight stitches, but actually they have give in them. The one thing I'm a bit concerned about is that the pattern, the Seamwork Astoria pattern, doesn't actually tell you to stabilise the shoulders. I'm quite used to sort of tilling the buttons patterns, for example, always tell you to sew a piece of ribbon or a piece of elastic into the shoulder seam to stabilise it. And I didn't do it just because the pattern didn't tell me to, so I'm a bit conscious that I need to make sure. I probably shouldn't have it on a hanger because I'm going to stretch out the shoulder seams. Oops. Last but not least, I would like to show you this, which is a by Hand London Eloise dress, and it is made in this beautiful tencel linen slub fabric from Lamazi Fabrics. It's just, this fabric is just delicious. It's just so soft, really breathable, really drapey, but it's opaque. I really like it. You will have seen on my Instagram or in a previous video that this is my second by Hand London Eloise dress. I've also made one, a really summery one, in this amazing yellow and white tile patterned fabric from Fabric Godmother, and I wanted to make another one. This one, because of the colour of it, I feel like it will be, again, I can wear it in the summer and in the winter. I think it will look really nice with black tights, maybe knee-high boots. So I'm hoping, yeah, I can wear it all year round. In terms of adjustments to the pattern, it was a dream because I'd already made all the pattern adjustments from the first time I made it, but I made variation 1. I shortened the length of the ruffle significantly. I did a small bust adjustment, 1 inch in total. Again, that seems to be what I need to do. I pinched a centimetre out of the shoulder seam. I raised the armhole by a centimetre, but I think I actually will raise it more next time because it's still not, I still am slightly restricted in movement in my arms. And I lowered the apex by a centimetre, which I needed to do to make up. When you do a small bust adjustment, it raises the apex, so unless you've got super high perky boobs, you probably need to lower it again. Yeah, that's what I did in terms of alterations. But I did have quite a big problem, or I do actually still have quite a big problem with this, which I'm a bit sad about, but it's okay. I'm gonna find a solution. Basically, this fabric is a really loose weave, and actually I've since found out that you guys were really helpful with this because I've mentioned this in a previous video, and one of you mentioned that Sew Me Sunshine, who also sells this same fabric, has actually got a few words of warning on her website about how to deal with this fabric. But I've basically got a problem where where the sleeves meet the bodice at the back, so sort of here, the fabric is fraying from the seam into the body of the fabric. Now I'll try and hold it up to show you. Do you see how it's got that sort of almost frayed section there? And it's done the same thing at the bottom of the keyhole back. And that looks particularly terrible because I attacked it with fray check in a panic, so it's not looking good at all. So, Lamazi Fabrics, by the way, were amazing about it. I contacted them to ask for advice, and they were brilliant about it. And they actually sent me some other fabric as a replacement, and they've contacted Meat Milk to ask advice from the manufacturer or the designer of the fabric. Yeah, so I'll let you know if I hear anything back on that. But basically, I need to figure out how to stabilise this to stop it getting worse, and actually to do some sort of repair job slash stabilisation, because I really want to be able to wear this, and I want to be able to wear it sort of ASAP. But yeah, I don't really mind if it's got some visible sort of patches or something on it. I'm going to look up some sort of visible mending techniques, to be honest. I really am not that bothered about trying to make it super invisible, but yeah, I just want to make sure that this fraying doesn't get any worse. So just a word of warning, if you are using this fabric, the Meat Milk Tencel linen slub, like, it's a delicate fabric, it's a loose weave. Yeah, a few people gave me advice, you know, maybe it was my needle, maybe I didn't use a fine enough needle, that kind of thing. I did use a fine needle, so I don't think it's that, but yeah, I think Sew Me Sunshine recommends to actually do 2 lines of stitching just to like stabilise it. So yeah, but I think I might try and make this my job for this afternoon actually, to fix this. I'm going to look up some tutorials online for mending and fixing holes and snags and stuff, so yeah. So there you have it. Those are the 4 things that I've made over about the last 4 months. I hope you enjoyed seeing them. Do go and follow me over on my Instagram if you would like to see more of my sort of pictures of my outfits and me like wearing all this stuff day to day. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you'd like to see more of my videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye!